remember I told everybody when I first became supervisor here that the previous administration and some of them sitting in the crowd was stealing. Did they want to write that story? No, they didn't.
Understand why we can't help each other, why we can't put our heads together and help one another, why we can't band together at this time, at this moment. This is going to be Black History Month, right? Y'all all say Martin Luther King had a dream, but guess what? I am the dream. So now I need you guys to stand with me and help me grow our dream. That's what I need.
Well, Tiffany Henyard is at it again. We all know that Police Chief Louis Lacey was fired, but now they're saying that the village didn't have the authority to fire him. So now in a secret meeting, we're finding out that Tiffany Henyard was caught bullying the police staff and telling them this.
WGN Investigates obtained video of Henyard telling police commanders this afternoon she and Lacey are still running things.
Keith Freeman do not work here, he's fired. So stop playing these silly games, Board of Trustees, and putting people's lives in jeopardy.
Do what you want, but anything after this is insubordination.
So now the state controller saying that they haven't turned in the right proper financial statements. So now they're withholding funds to Dalton to actually pay them. It's called offset, and offset payments have been suspended to Dalton. It looks like they said this.
State Controller Susana Mendoza suspending some state payments to Dalton. They're called offset funds, money collected from state payments that the Controller's office can withhold when people owe money to municipalities. The office says in Dalton's case, Mayor Tiffany Henyard has refused to share required annual reports, including a financial report and a financial audit for the past 2 years.
And with all this being said, Police Chief Louis Lacey, who was fired but now is reinstated back by the mayor, was just arraigned in federal court.
Now at 6, Dalton's acting police chief just appeared before a federal judge to face bankruptcy, fraud, and perjury charges.
It's the latest chapter in what's become an ongoing saga involving the village of Dalton.
Moments ago, where acting police chief of Dalton, Louis Lacey, pleaded not guilty to all the charges. Now, as part of pre-trial release conditions, a judge ordered him to turn in all his firearms as well as his FOID card.
Now, we know that this has been a crazy week in Dalton. We've been waiting for some bombshells to drop, and now the bombshells is dropping. We now know that Keith Freeman is working with the feds. He's telling. This thing is getting real crazy. We know that Lori Lightfoot, she came and dropped her preliminary findings.
Tonight, more drama in Dalton. Credit card transactions amounting to thousands of dollars without explanation and millions more owed to vendors.
A bombshell report highlights just how much financial trouble the village of Dalton is really in.
Receipts for purchases are, quote, rarely provided, unquote. In just one day, 3 transactions were made on Amazon. One for $33,000, another for $4,700, and a third for $5,600. Another significant purchase that stands out, nearly $7,700 spent at Wayfair, and that is only scratching the surface. Community members were shocked to learn that at least 589 checks amounting to over $6 million were approved and printed but never sent to vendors. Henyard, a no-show for tonight's highly anticipated meeting, and attorneys for village trustees say she has changed the locks at Village Hall once again.
$40,000 at Amazon. What a slap in the face to everybody that resides in 60419 zip code.
I know how I felt when I started seeing these numbers.
And we know that the village has been hemorrhaging money for some time, and they've been having to lay off a lot of people. But one thing that Lori Lightfoot's preliminary findings has uncovered was Police Chief Louis Lacey and all the money that he was making in overtime when he wasn't eligible to receive it.
That reaction was to the staggering police officer overtime. 2 officers making more in overtime than their base salaries last year. According to Lightfoot, the acting police chief, who isn't eligible for overtime, still raked in more than $200,000 in OT in the last 4 years.
So we know that the chief was put on administrative leave and then fired by the board because we know that there was some shenanigans going on behind the scenes, and he was getting money or doing things that he wasn't supposed to do under the law.
Voted last night to place the village's top cop on administrative leave, only for him to defiantly return to work today.
There was a deputy chief that was placed on administrative leave. He disregarded that and showed up the very next day. He then received a notice that he was terminated, and he despite being notified that he was terminated and in discussions with the Fraternal Order of Police, the FOP, he again showed up today.
So afterwards of being fired and showing up defiantly, because he has no respect for the Dalton residents or law or actual law at all, he was then indicted for bankruptcy fraud.
First, though, breaking news in the south suburbs. A federal indictment just announced against the former deputy police chief of Dalton. This is Louis Lacy at a recent village board meeting. He's now charged with bankruptcy fraud. Lacy is accused of scheming to hide assets and income from creditors and trying to avoid paying a lawsuit settlement.
So he's facing up to 5 years in prison on all nine counts, and he had to go for his arraignment in front of a federal judge today.
Now at 6, Dalton's acting police chief just appeared before a federal judge to face bankruptcy, fraud, and perjury charges.
It's the latest chapter in what's become an ongoing saga involving the village of Dalton.
Moments ago, where acting police chief of Dalton, Louis Lacy, pleaded not guilty to all the charges. Now, as part of pre-trial release conditions, a judge ordered him to turn in all his firearms as well as his FOID card.
Now, the irony behind this is, based off of his charges, he had to turn in his weapon and everything. So now he's an acting police chief without a firearm. So he's going to be the police chief of Dalton with no gun.
Does need his firearm in case something happens on the street and that puts him in danger. We respect the judge's order. He will not carry a firearm, and hopefully it will not jeopardize his job.
So you would think that him being stripped of his firearm privileges, that he would just sit it down and go through this trial and figure out things as they go along. But Tiffany Henyard, not to be undone, said, no, this is still my top cop. Check it out.
Some breaking news out of suburban Dalton.
And this comes just days after the trustees terminated the deputy police chief. Now the mayor of the village, Tiffany Henyard, has appointed him to a new position. NBC5's Regina Waldrop has reaction on today's announcement.
Good evening. An illegal appointment. That's what the trustees I talked to are calling this. They say the news took them by surprise, and now they're talking to legal counsel to figure out their next steps. Now, it was last Monday that Deputy Dalton Police Chief Louis Lacy was put on administrative leave by the Dalton Village Board. Trustees say he returned to work the next day and was later fired for insubordination. Then today, trustees say they got word that Mayor Tiffany Henyard has now appointed Lacy as police chief without trustees voting on this appointment, and they say Lacy has also not been sworn in to the position.
Mayor Henyard wasn't having it. She insists Lacy is still the village's top cop. Dalton police officers and commanders received an email summoning them to a mandatory meeting with Mayor Henyard and Chief Lacy. Soon after, Freeman fired off a reply that read, Louis Lacy is no longer employed by the village of Dalton. Mr. Lacy is not allowed in any spaces reserved for employees without an escort.
So after all of this, everybody come close and listen to me. Everybody gather in and listen. After all of this, Chief Lacy and Tiffany Henyard had a secret meeting with the police department and threatened them with insubordination if they didn't go along with the go-along and listen. Whatever happens from this point on, if you don't listen, you are in insubordination. Check this out.
WGN Investigates obtained video of Henyard telling police commanders this afternoon she and Lacy are still running things.
Keith Freeman do not work here, he's fired. So stop playing these silly games, Board of Trustees, and putting people's lives in jeopardy.
Do what you want. But anything after this is insubordination.
So there's a lot of crazy stuff going on behind the scenes. We know that Keith Freeman is flipped, but I don't trust that Louis Lacy because his lawyer is saying that he's basically snitching. So like I told you guys, we got the former police chief. There's going to be a bunch of people at this trial that's going to take the stand. Tiffany Henyard is in serious trouble. And I'm telling you, I can feel it in my bones. They're going after that boyfriend of hers. They're going after that boyfriend of hers because he's going to have to show that money that was out, that six-figure salary that was allocated to him, he's going to have to show records of that. So they're definitely coming for him. Y'all better look forward to that. But let's check out Louis Lacy's attorney, Gal Pazinski, and what he just said.
Lacy is absolutely not guilty of all 9 counts. I believe he's cooperating. And if you cooperate, you have to admit your guilt first.
So now the State Department, the feds, the governor, everybody's watching it. So now the state controller is deciding to not just suspend funds, but just not give funds indefinitely. No funds is coming through. So now the city of Dalton is just bleeding. This thing is just getting crazy.
State Controller Susana Mendoza is suspending some state payments to Dalton. They're called offset funds, money collected from state payments that the Controller's office can withhold when people owe money to municipalities. The office says in Dalton's case, Mayor Tiffany Henyard has refused to share required annual reports, including a financial report and a financial audit for the past 2 years.
So it's just total insanity in Dalton. You have a police chief that's under federal indictment. He can't carry a gun, but he's still the police chief. You have the top aide who's now under federal indictment for bankruptcy fraud. He's now flipped. You have a mayor, an embattled mayor that's just trying everything she can do to hold it together, but she knows that the jig is up. And they're coming in, they're coming to get her. The feds is moving in. And, well, she earned this. This is well-deserved. You know, with the way that she's behaving. And when the cameras came in, the local cameras, the national cameras, the international cameras, she showed up and showed out. So now it's going to be time to pay the piper. And like I said, we've seen her do so many things to the residents of Dalton. We've seen board meetings where residents have got up and they were very upset with the work that this administration have done. We've seen her go on to Roland Martin and just lie. We've seen her create a podcast and just lie. And now we find out that her top cop was breaking the law himself. So why should we believe anything that he has to say? Anything. Because he's a liar and a thief. He's been spending money, he's been stealing money from the taxpayers that he's supposed to protect and serve. But this is, again, this is Dalton, Illinois. And it's a sad thing, man, but it's the reality of what goes on in a lot of these cities across America. And like I told you, the feds, everybody wanted the feds to just run in. No, the feds don't run in. They letting it implode from within. So once they come in, they just got convictions. Because I guarantee you, it's way more people telling right now that's working in that administration that knows what's going on. It's way more people blowing the whistle. Don't think for a second. I believe that Andrew Holmes could be also snitching. So there's a lot of when the feds come and they put the pressure on you, a lot of people start to flip. But I'm gonna cut it short here. If you made it this far in the video, hit that like button, subscribe to Street Media TV, leave your comments in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think. And remember, I love y'all. Till the next time, peace.